Alright. Hello, welcome to my second video essay. The whole background has changed a lot, and this is also gonna be like the last video, in the sense that just how it's formatted. I don't have a notebook. I felt like what would be best is if I got it up on my laptop here, make the font like kind of big here. There was just some glare on my laptop and made it kind of hard to read. Anyways, so this is about how Total Drama Action really failed as a sequel, and well, I wouldn't say it necessarily failed. I put that in the wrong terms there. But what I would say is that it isn't necessarily to the standards that everybody puts on it. In the total drama community, there's a sort of idea that everybody prescribes to, where it's just where the first 3 seasons are automatically the best for whatever reason. I think it's nostalgia because most of the people creating content in this community were there for the first 3 seasons airing. You know, I get it. I'd probably have an amount of nostalgia, and I still do for Island and World Tour. But I just, for reasons I'll get into in this video, I don't think it really compares. So, I think I have like 41 pages, I would say, and, well, the font's kind of big. The wording is kind of big, but it's like 41 pages. And I'm going to start off with the pacing. So, a major problem the season has is with the pacing. Total Drama Action brought the series something that does irreparable damage to the series and ruins watchability. Half the episodes do not have elimination in this season, as opposed to Island, which only has 3 episodes that didn't have eliminations. Those being the very first episode, an episode in the final 4, and the episode that initiates the merger. These have reasons to be non-elimination episodes because they represent an important milestone of the game itself and fill us in on what the character dynamics would be in their new situation. This is completely different, where we only have 12 characters at the beginning, and the shortened cast was such an awful idea. If the cast really needed shortening, it didn't. Then exclude 4 select characters and continue the season like it was, with 2 characters coming in at the merge. This makes sense because you still have the completely necessary shortening of the cast, and have room for the aftermath, and also have a non-elimination episodes at points in the competition that actually makes sense, like the merger in the first episode, like I was mentioning earlier. It also doesn't help that the season, despite having a small cast, introduced the double elimination mechanic. This was pretty much to get Bridget and Jeff to host the aftermath, and to scrap the terrible arcs of Owen and Courtney at the end of the season. This makes sense in the narrative sense, but it just feels like they're trying to cover their own asses when it comes to filling in holes they already dug for themselves. I will get into Owen and Courtney double elimination, but it's worthwhile to go into Bridget and Jeff's double elimination here because it has the following ramifications for the pacing of the season. Bridget and Jeff are eliminated for the sole purpose of hosting the Aftermath, which is a sister show where they discuss the events of what is happening on set. This is a good idea and makes thematic sense, adding a sense of grandeur, removing us from the camp set, which was the origin of this series. It takes an episode-long break from the show, talking to the eliminated campers about their time in the game. The Aftermath show is not bad, but specifically the ones in action are very bad. And are deserving of more direct criticism than the World Tour Aftermaths. The first of the two Aftermaths are used in story arcs that we already saw on the show. We will go into depth in these two character arcs. You can guess which ones they are. I'm not going to mention them. I have no plan on mentioning them until we get there. So for right now, it's just going to be the unmentionable character arcs or whatever I put in the script. It provides little to no entertainment value whatsoever and flies in the face of the people that we have learned their serious, in-depth character in the season prior. We also spent some time talking to Izzy and DJ, which is okay, I guess. Sure, Izzy is a good character, but lacks a narrative outside of the Izzy isn't crazy theory. And DJ is very one note as well in this Aftermath. This is also needed to be discussed later, but DJ's persona completely changes at the start for no reason. These two episodes are not good showings of the Aftermath. The next Aftermath has three purposes alone: allowing the start of Owen's character arc to get back on the show, Jeff's arc of being pompous and full of himself, and the third is learning more about Heather and Lashana. Jeff going off the rails makes sense and can be conveyed through a character like Jeff, who is nice, but can have an anxiety-based people-pleaser side to him as well. This is a mid-arc because while you can see the narrative sense, it gets in the way of the Aftermath show conducting their business, which is having characters reflect on their time in the show, learning about characters, and to better understand the conclusions they came to at this point of their elimination. By cramming all of this with drama that is okay at best and comes off as forced at worst, it ruins the structure of the season at large, thus making us lose focus on the game, which should be the focus of the TV show. Learning about Heather and Lashana is nice. We get to explore Lashana and Harold's relationship and Heather's psyche as a whole. Lashana prioritizing the game makes sense for her, but even if it doesn't fully align with the flip-flopping portrayal of her relationship within the season, that was supposed to be the end of the sentence there, but I didn't really pick up on that when I was reading this. Heather letting us see how she really views people like Lindsay and Beth makes us see her in a different light. Like how she denies the competency of her competitors to feed in her narcissistic agenda. These both make sense to the characters, but get thrown to a wayside for a bad continual arc of Jeff and Bridget, and an unnecessary episode arc with, Jeff flying off the rails and they have to, put him in the electric chair or whatever. This last aftermath is literally the finale for the show at large. We have 2 episodes for this finale, and it makes it easily the worst finale out of all of them. Doing all of the challenges throughout the season, or answering a question about how your fellow competitors is a good idea, but it ruins the pacing of the show and leaves us with an unsatisfying conclusion, even though it fits with the nature of this season, which is long and stuffed with filler. For the show to end on the Aftermath show doesn't feel right, because it's a sideshow to the actual TV show. It's more about giving all the other characters spotlight, which prevents us from having an impactful conclusion. The existence of the show is based on the thinning of the cast and being left with 2 characters that have a major development as people over the course of the show. The last season did the eliminated players having a role part much better, because it wasn't about the relationships with the cast as much as it was the challenge itself, getting to the end point, which should be what the finale is about, because that's what the rest of the show is about. It was also about the flaws and the character traits of these people we have known for over 26 half hours, and the impact that winning had on them as a person. In this season, we learned nothing new about Beth and Duncan besides mundane facts. This season was so unconfident with itself that they had to focus on the relationship between Chris and Chef rather than the other contestants. This season also had the most comeback characters being Izzy, Courtney, and Owen. Izzy has no motivation to come back and is just sort of relegated to a side gag. Her getting eliminated and coming back 3 episodes later gives me as a viewer a feeling that we aren't really getting anywhere in the advancement of the show. For a character to come back in episode 7 is just a terrible writing decision, and Izzy does nothing in the plot at all. She comes back and is immediately the next character to get booted off when they lose a non-reward challenge. Even the idea of me saying non-reward challenge is strange, because this season has made it a regular occurrence for the show to not advance the main plot of the show whatsoever. Courtney comes back halfway through the show to be a villain insert, which she has a lot to unpack. Even after I unpacked her entire arc in the last video, even after I unpacked her entire arc after the last video, so either watch that or wait until later in this video. Owen comes back as a mole and also gets eliminated in 4 episodes after coming back. These comebacks are so bad and such a plot point. Owen doesn't even do anything to get other characters eliminated as a mole. He just sort of votes them out, and Chris eliminates him. He has no use to come back, because at the same pace, they would have gotten rid of all the other characters by the same rate that they have been going. Owen just gets thrown in with Courtney as an executive decision and doesn't lead us to climactic elimination like Heather and Island, Cody and World Tour, or Zoe and Revenge. But it just leaves us with the sort of realization that it's the finale. You know, we get to the end and it's just like, hey, it's the finale, man. Better get ready. We're gonna have an entire half hour episode on filler, just going over the filler plot lines we gave to two characters that didn't really have much going for them. I like Duncan, but he's kind of just like you're supposed to like him guy, like a sort of character that you're just supposed to like him. Like, sure, he's funny and he has a dynamic with Courtney, but I don't necessarily find any of his character arcs that interesting. He has like his arcs are a lot less obvious and a lot just like you can't really pick up on it that easily on your first viewing, and I don't really like it. But you know, that's a tangent. I'm going to talk about the characters later. Maybe it would be better if Owen didn't come back, because then we could have had a challenge that leads us to a satisfying downfall of Courtney, rather than Duncan half awake voting for her. Overall, this season has led to some implementations that have really ruined the show when it comes to pacing. And with a 12-person cast, it leaves the plot feeling really empty, as if it needed more. Here we are going to talk into depth of the actual potency of the episodes where we do get substance with these characters. Here we can divide the majority of the cast into characters that got advancements within their own stories, and those that got poorly written advancements in their stories. There are 5 characters that I'm not going to talk about in either of these segments. Those are Heather, Lindsay, Harold, Justin, and Courtney. I put 5 here. Wait. Oh, never mind. We'll get to that. Heather, Lindsay, and Harold are not included because I do like what they did with their stories in the context of the season. Courtney and Justin get their own special villain segment. As for the rest of the characters, I'm going to talk about Bridget, Izzy, Owen, Duncan, and Beth in this part. Bridget is one of the first 2 players to be eliminated on the show, and this means she does nothing substantial besides making out with Jeff in the competition. The rest of her time is being spent being the co-host of the Aftermath show. She gets split with Jeff once he starts becoming violent, and also when they choose sides over the events in the second Aftermath. Guys, I'm trying my best not to go into these 2 characters just yet, because let's just say I have really choice words for the writers' handling of their situation in their own special segment. So, yeah, I think you probably understand who I'm talking about. Bridget just sort of reacts to Jeff throughout these episodes. Sometimes Bridget is really lacking as a character. Is appropriate. She's lacking as a character in appropriate character depth. We rehash the same relationship between Jeff and Bridget over and over again, and we don't learn anything about Bridget except she's nice, and she doesn't like when Jeff is not nice. I get with the structure of this show, it doesn't really make sense to go in on her other relationships. But for example, in the second aftermath, without all the plot being eaten up by Jeff's insanity and the other plot, we have DJ and Bridget remembering their times, or have a casual discussion about DJ's closeness to his mom and his moral compulsion to boot himself off of the show. That knocks out Bridget and DJ in one stone and gives us time for a thoughtful conclusion of the other arc. We just continue with nothing. And for us to get nothing in a season with 26 episodes is worse than getting a whole lot of stuff in a 13-episode season, even if it feels rushed. Next, we have the character arc of Izzy, which is also nothing except being an easy filler elimination at the start and being an easy filler elimination at the end. We get the same wacky hijinks that we did in season 1, but even more meaningless this time around. Izzy always just sort of comes back in the game, with exception of World Tour, and gives time for other mundane and awful plot lines. Wacky Izzy shenanigans have a nice dichotomy when it comes to Island and being on a team with Heather, who's a master strategist in the first season, and Alejandro in the third. This gives the Gophers and Chris is really, really hot, a nice balance. Also with Owen being on both of those teams. This team has no strategist, a half-baked strategist being Justin, who we will get into later. The lack of this dichotomy leads to the lack of purpose for the writers to have Izzy in the show anyways. Her main thing this season is an exploration of her multiple personality disorder and how she uses it to get back into the game. I like how she gets back into the game, but then the interest ends. She has a weird out of character moments within the season, with her acting as a straight man role at times, to the pure stupidity of her teammates. I think that would make this better. I think what would make this better is the insertion of Izzy into the dispute between Justin and Lindsay. Then we can get Izzy ramping this shit up tenfold and just have fireworks. Instead, she just harasses Owen for no reason. Now we have Owen himself, who acts as his normal self in the first appearance, but in the second appearance he comes back and it does nothing to eliminate Karen Pierce, which is his purpose of being there. We just sort of realize no one else in the competition has any chemistry at all in this season besides Duncan and Courtney, so let's just do more filler here. It's so cheap and it makes Owen feel worse as a character. I see a lot of Owen hate because he is disgusting or is kind of a floater. The first one is just sort of up for interpretation with the absurdity of the way Owen acts. What is funny for me, I wouldn't say he is a floater because in the first season he works with LaShawna Gwen, the guy's alliance. We see him not only getting along with all the other characters, but thrive at the game and eventually come to win. Being a mole gives him nothing to work with because he doesn't have any relation to anyone except Duncan or Lindsay. He doesn't even make friends with his personality. He's just a side character with no bearing on the game, and that's why the inclusion of him was terrible when he came back. He just sort of shows up in episode 21, which is too late for a comeback anyways. We are already in the final 5 without him. But we just need to retread all of the relationships between Beth, Courtney, Lindsay, Harold, and Duncan for the billionth time. He only really gets Harold eliminated, but that's just convenience for him. Seeking a nice character like Owen being underhanded can be a good plot, but lacks zero interest at all and does nothing for the competition. I would simply just not bring back Owen and be confident with the characters that you've had a full season with. If you need to include him, have him befriend people like Duncan and Harold. That way he has voting power, and the cast can whittle down to those two, leaving a decent finale between Harold and Duncan, with obviously like Owen getting casted out for being a traitor. Not only would Owen serve a purpose in this way, we could also see what he does best and cut him at the final 3 in a move between Harold and Duncan, saving their interesting dynamic for the finale. Duncan is the next character here, and we see him getting friendly with Gwen at the start of this season. Getting friendly with the unmentionable, one of the unmentionable 2 at the start of the season. He also has a dynamic with Harold and Lashana. This is a great start to write a character with, and has a lot of direction to go from here. Duncan falls into the arc we are not going to talk about right now, so we'll just have to talk about Duncan just sort of being a jerk to Harold. This just lacks any character writing nuance with Duncan because they don't understand how to write him here. He is supposed to bounce off of the other cast members, but he was never the main character, and that's why I am confused as to him being the main character. Despite getting so much of the screen time, we don't learn anything about him except with the insight to his relationship with Courtney. When Courtney comes back, Duncan and her have this hater-dater vibe that just acts as something to obsess over for the rest of the season. Courtney is just really rude, and their chemistry lacks any nuanced writing about the two. I've learned I have this way of just like choosing some words and just copying it in a certain section of time, but I think it works. Everybody does that. They think we want to see this Dunkney gag. They think we want to see this, but Dunkney gag 386 has just as much impact on the season as the other 385 out there. It's bad to throw 2 characters that had a relationship in the first season, make them fight over and over and over again, with no respect to how we know they act with each other already. Sure, if you like it, then you do you. But the reason why they are so controversial is because the writers really did them dirty. They want you to think they are iconic this season, but they are the same people. They are the same people from when they join in to when they are eliminated. Instead, we could go more in depth on how Courtney feels about Gwunkin, or how Courtney feels about her elimination last season, with needed reflection on both, which could change how both of them act. Also, we can transform the plot about Duncan being a nice guy in the last season to an even greater character arc about him eventually becoming a hero in season 5. All of this would be better than the end product, an end product with the missing identity. After getting Duncan out of the way, here's time for the worst finalist ever. It doesn't even come close to Duncan lacking plot. Beth just gets by on her being nice to competitors until she needs to make an alliance with Courtney and overcome her shitty attitude. Her arc has nothing new. We learn nothing new about this character that was a side character in Island and is a side character in the season until she just wanders into the finale. This has to be one of the ultimate flaws with this season, the lack of meaningful depth with these characters. If you want to do something with Beth to make her lead up to being a finalist, let her be a side character to Lindsay until she gains confidence to lead her team. Then after the merge, let her get some challenge wins, which play into her character arc of being a more serious competitor. This also works in the aftermath scene where we see Heather being asked if Beth is a real threat, because at this point, she has become a real threat. It's not that hard to write, but it just makes sense. It just makes the season look so bad to get this random side character into the finale. I get it, Lindsay's actor had to go. If you need an alternative finalist, hey, Harold is right there. If you need a female alternate finalist, Courtney is also right there. This is so undeserved for Beth. You can't get me to like her because there's nothing to like about her. In the last episode, they try to throw in this thing about Beth being mean by eating cookies meant for the group, but I just couldn't care because they were trying to give her something at the very end of the season. These characters didn't do much with the during the course of the season, but it is so much better than what could have been. Wait, I'm sorry. These characters didn't do much within the course of the season, but it is so much better than what could have been, which is them actually trying to build a character arc this season. The ones who do get character arcs, man, are they awful. And it all starts with the antagonist. Total Drama is a series that relies on a strong villain. Without a memorable villain, the season just starts to cave in on itself. We have two villains this season, Justin and Courtney. I don't know if either of them deserve to be here for reasons I will get into in a moment, but I think we found a discrepancy in the writing from the start. To have two separate villains implies that neither of them do their jobs well, which is to stir up drama. The reason why there needs to be only one main antagonist is because throughout the season we have all the tension and the inner workings of the game on one person. This leads to the audience being alienated with their inclusion and has someone for us to root for, better yet, root against. This leads the audience, this is what we need for a good season of the show. Instead, we get two who feel like half-assed versions of what they could have been. Justin is the first, and we see him becoming a villain back in the Island special. He uses his good looks to turn others against their nature and to make him do his work for him. When we get to the actual season, there are ramblings of him being a villain for example, or rumblings of him being a villain. For example, when he eliminates Trent behind his back and gets Gwen to do his team favors, getting both players eliminated in the end. After that, we get radio silence. Apparently, Justin becomes a bitch halfway through the season and decides not to focus on the game anymore. We have had such an awesome start, but they do not care enough to continue it. What they do to use Justin for is this arc of worrying about, my hair is too long, man. Holy crap. What they do use Justin for is the arc of worrying about getting injured. Does it make sense for the vain Justin to care about this? Yes. Does it make sense for him to try to get other contestants eliminated from here on out? No. We don't get any more villainous behavior from him at the end here. So we have to wheel in the other one at the midpoint of the competition. Here, Courtney picks up the main antagonist chops by winning almost every challenge she's in, getting immunity until the last 2 votes. This crazy plot armor, this is crazy plot armor. This would be great if Courtney was this Heather tier villain, but she just wins a lot. I mean, she just whines a lot. She does nothing to get her fellow. Oh my god, man! Sorry, it's something today. Get her fellow campers eliminated. Besides maybe Justin, she makes Justin fall for her, which gets in the way of Duncan and Harold. After those two are upset, she beats Justin and gets him to go home. Again, we have built a great start, but nothing comes from it. We need to see more of this and have her mastermind Lindsay's elimination instead of making Lindsay vote for herself for whatever reason, giving us a fitting conclusion to Lindsay's arc and building up Courtney as a serious threat. This show takes every single possible route they can go down with these characters and chooses the most mundane, useless one every single time. This whole missing identity aspect of the season makes it so hard to talk about because its themes and challenges is a good base to build off of and gives it a distinct angle to work at. How fame can change all of these regular teens. Why is it so hard to talk about is it makes me have to try to explain how the whole season is not worthwhile and comes up short at every angle when most people don't see it in that light. Like I said, these are supposed to be regular teams, giving Courtney superpowers every episode and letting her get away with being a bitch with no repercussions for her actions is so unsatisfying within the context. If Courtney is going to be this villain, make her more at home with the characters in season 1. She already has a decent to good possible. She was already a decent to good possible villain in season 1. So it doesn't take much writing to make her better. Yeah, either have her come in at the beginning, or if you want to make her seem like an actual threat, give her the reins this season. Not only let her mastermind Justin's elimination, let her also plot against Beth and Harold, 2 characters that she doesn't like. This makes the finale more interesting because Duncan and Courtney being in the finale would be good if this was an action. Courtney in action has some absurd characterization issues that makes watching the show almost unbearable. We don't need her being an awful person. We need a realistic portrayal of what of why she would seek revenge after being unfairly eliminated and how that makes her feel. We don't need her pushing around Duncan because that's just who she is. We need an in-depth analysis of some sort of lead that can get us to the conclusion of why she does this now, rather than when she would play along with him in the first season. Trying to get someone else to seriously care about these narrative flaws is really hard because people are too complacent with what we got in this horrendous sequel. The people that believe in the original trilogy of the season is so good is the reason the fan base is so bad. I couldn't care about the whole merge cast with the addition of Justin, Beth, and Courtney. If we don't get some serious drama. When you cut out the main progression of the story, you cut out what makes total drama interesting at its core. When you leave the villain position wide open and you just try to fill it, the story falls right on its face. They didn't do well with this sequel. They got complacent, and we started to get filler. The main reason why Island and World Tour are so good is because of the lack of filler. World Tour does have filler episodes, but it builds into the existing tension. For example, when Alejandro reveals he is playing with DJ's confidence in Newfoundland. The Aftermath show has a distinct identity because they are all memorable. The first one, we learn about the dynamics with the new host. Second is a telethon to raise money, and third is a game show to get characters back in. The last one doesn't take place at the studio, but actually takes us at the final location of the season. This works in the villain's favor because not only do we get needed breathing room from the plot of the villain, but it gives the viewers something to watch. It plays into the villainous narrative of Alejandro, a villain who does something and makes a spectacle out of it. In this season, not only do the filler episodes work just to cover Courtney and give us more useless challenges, it makes the elimination order feel like, yeah, I guess that just left for some reason. Heather and Island had almost direct control in every elimination, but to split it up into two villains lessens the threat of both of them, creating a lack of tension. I would be able to like this season if there was some main character arcs, a bad finale, and two villains if we got some good moments from most of the characters we've learned to love. Allow me to introduce to you the pinnacle of all flaws in this show's history, the character derailments in Total Drama. Within this segment, I'm going to talk about Jeff, DJ, and Lashana with two special mystery characters that deserve their own deserve their own very special segment. I'm going to start with DJ here because I got to Jeff earlier, and Jeff's derailment comes over the course of the whole season. Meanwhile, DJ's derailment happens over the course of 9 episodes. The way that this derailment comes in is the form of flanderization, making one particular character trait the only thing they do. This happens to DJ because they retcon the whole thing about DJ also being one of the guys that bullied Harold. DJ being a coward works when he has the edge that Duncan and Jeff also have. When you make DJ overly sappy and not able to recognize that original edge the character had, can lead you with what? Character can lead you into bad writing mistakes. DJ cheating with a staff member is a good idea. It's really unexpected and makes a good character arc. This also makes sense with his elimination, and his elimination being based around his moral guilt for allowing himself to be dragged into these bad places. All very good. The main issue is that this whole way through, he's such a pussy. If you look at the original season, the whole thing about DJ was how he managed his fears as such a cowardly person. Not being able to jump off the cliff, worrying about the water in the canoeing episode, and being eliminated for being scared in the horror movie episode. It just doesn't fit in this character arc because it harps on the same story beats this time with nothing added. The season that this is specifically a derailment. The reason why this is a specific derailment. I got everything mixed up in the script, whatever. Is because DJ is never the same after this point because of the stylistic decisions the writers made. I had like the scroll wheel when I was moving. DJ is never the same after this point because of the stylistic decisions the writers made in the season. To take away that edge makes him a flat character, not worthy of screen time, and for the most part, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. However, for him to be a boot in the middle of the season makes him feel just like a passenger more than a competitor. DJ being active and his obsessive personalities were funny in the first season because it added a dimension of humor. His humor comes out of how much of a pussy he is, rather than his nature obsession or some sort of funny B plot. His humor comes out of how much of a pussy he is, rather than his nature obsession or some sort of funny B plot that can work in with him. This is a derailment because it loses track of what they had DJ on, which is this moderately funny B plot mid-tier elimination. They think we like his cowardice, which isn't entirely wrong, but he loses his entertainment value when that is the only thing he does. I could continue on this for a really long time, but I think we should move on to the next particularly interesting case of Lashana. Lashana exists in a state of limbo this season. She is caught in the feud between Duncan and Harold, trying to make amends this season, but we don't learn anything about her as a person. Her screen time is trying to resolve the feud of two completely separate people. After being granted forgiveness, she's just sort of there and gets eliminated, not without a reward challenge that just drags on the obvious next boot. Her coming to terms with Heather was nice to see, but it doesn't do anything within the entire arc, so they just go back to fighting in World Tour. A lot of this season just doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of any of these plots. She is pretty much granted the role of conflict mediator and lacks all charm she previously had. What I would do is fully flesh out the relationship between Harold and Lashana instead of relegating it to a part of an aftermath episode. Next, I would probably focus on her previously established relationship with Gwen and rival Duncan. Then she could use this social capital to try to eliminate enemies like Beth or Heather. That would be good to see. Or maybe this could fit into the villain's plans, and instead of Beth imploding her social standing, have Courtney do it instead. Getting her team to pick her off, they would be without a leader and a mediator that would cause the team to be in shambles and work in Courtney's favor. All of this was just skipped out, and they booted Heather, despite it making sense for them to boot Lashana, and would have made more plot relevance that this was a serious missed opportunity. Instead, we get Lashana mediating a conflict that boils over after she gets eliminated, which just neglects her personality. Of course, we know Lashana cares about the others, and it makes her lying to get a reward an interesting starting point, but they just sort of undeservingly forgive her. Just because Lashana is well-liked amongst the cast and the audience doesn't mean that we should automatically forgive her for betraying their trust. Just because she says, "I'm sorry," in a challenge. We need to see a well-thought-out realization amongst her team that despite her betraying their trust, she always seems to have the team prioritized in her thought process otherwise. I would also like a better elimination than just, she isn't doing anything anymore, let's get rid of her. Because the elimination is a part of the arc. That is the foundation of this game. That there's a beginning and there's an end, and the transformation of the characters of these teenagers makes the show interesting. Lashana doesn't get changed at all and appears the exact same season 1 version of herself in the next season, making her inclusion pointless. Lastly, there's Jeff, who we have already gone over, but I feel like doing the last in this segment because of the chronological significance. And the other two in the two-parter, damn, I really cannot see at all. Oh man. I'm just kind of tired right now. In the two-parter, he just makes out with Bridget and gets kicked off. Not much about it. Doing this double elimination here can completely ruin the pacing, but their inclusion of the aftermath was needed. It has shown that he is really bad at his job in the first aftermath and doesn't properly understand what to do. He just sort of says stuff to piss off Bridget, and that is really dislikable. He gets jealous with Bridget for defending one of the characters that are not to be mentioned as of right now, and that initiates them starting to pick sides over the drama, driving a wedge in between their conflict. Now they break up and they start to ignore each other. In the second episode, he gets really obsessed with the way he looks on camera in and it starts making Bridget upset. Jeff messes with DJ for saying he is glad he kept his integrity. The reason why this moment matters is because it shows off Jeff's true priority, which is not with his character or with his girlfriend, but on winning the competition. That doesn't make sense for Jeff. His entire thing was about how competition wasn't that serious in the beginning, and he decided to go against the strategic moves because it would help his girlfriend out, and that was a part of the reason why he got eliminated last time. This time he got eliminated because of his focus on their relationship, and without that he becomes someone he never was, and it just takes a really quick turn. I do not like it. This continues into the next episode, where they use an electric chair to get information out of the contestants, and we learn how much he really cares about Bridget. This is really undeserved because, as previously mentioned, he becomes his opposite on the turn of a dime, just because he is on TV. It's not well written. We get no time to transition between the character arcs, and it's pretty much saved by the separation of the aftermath episodes. The unnecessary Bridget and Jeff B plots in these episodes are really what makes these aftermaths so bad, because we just get 4.5 hours of Jeff acting out of character and bullying his friends and girlfriend. This isn't even the tip of the iceberg. We are going to transition into the worst group of writing decisions that can ever be made by any writing staff ever. I sort of was busy over the course of the month because I had to move in, but I had to record all of this in the last couple of days. But here we are. Here we are, everyone. We are at the worst part of everything. All of the seasons, all of the series, all of fiction, you name it. This is the worst of it. Trent and Gwen in season 2 are awful. Starting in chronological order, we have Trent himself. Trent is my favorite character of all time, but sadly, he decides to choose my favorite character to completely ruin. Dude, I should have chosen a way better font. Trent and Island was a cool, level-headed musician who just really had a way with people. He starts the season and everything is alright between him and the rest of the cast. Once we realize that he and Gwen are on separate teams, everything comes crashing down. And the second this happens, now I don't consider action canon past this point. Seriously, this decision was so bad that it wasn't because of the writers themselves. Though it's not confirmed, it feels very obvious about the writers broke them up to put Gwen with Duncan in the future, and it sacrifices the entire show from this point onwards. There's no group of words that can make you understand how frustrated I am, because they pretty much retire Trent's character and make him weird when they didn't need to. Like I said, it is theorized that the network made Trent and Gwen break up for Duncan and Gwen to be a thing. I guess you can do that, but what do you do with Trent? They just retire him, but not only do they retire him, they ruin him and make him be a complete socially unaware lunatic despite his charismatic personality. Then he is perfectly okay on the aftermath, like nothing happens this season. Gwen is not innocent in all this either. I get there was some times where she was trying to hear Trent out, but for her to talk to Duncan like that and listen to only him, that sucks. I feel for Trent in this moment because it was obvious that her and Duncan were talking so much over the course of the season. Then after Trent is gone, we have this whole fallout situation. It's just Gwen voting herself off, with throwing the challenges included. Look, I understand that Gwen feels guilty for Trent throwing the challenges for her, but after he gets voted off, why should she care? I get it. She empathizes with the Grips, but why isn't she like, this is my relationship, and I have no obligation to your team because Trent willingly threw the challenge without my involvement. She has no backbone, and she just gives the Grips her entire existence in the game. This is the worst this season gets, and it consumes the first half of the season. Easily the worst arc in the show's history. The last 3 parts are not going to be as long because I feel like I've already made some of my points clear about the characterization and what they were going for in the previous part. I think I already laid out some broad overviews on character arcs, but this is sort of a finalization of my points. This season lacks serious drama, especially in terms of the villains earlier. We really needed one consistent villain over the duration of this season, but we didn't get it. Most of the drama, like Lindsay and Beth versus Courtney, just seems like silly character disputes. Lindsay and Courtney have a continuous dichotomy of someone who has their head up in the clouds versus someone who is very serious and determined. It's a decent dispute, but it tries to build up Lindsay's wins as super impactful, even though Lindsay was never in danger. And when we know Lindsay wins, Courtney gets saved by the non-elimination. It's really sad because this could make Lindsay look great, give her an incredible moment in the season when she beats Courtney after winning the challenge. This is what we needed her to get, but we just didn't receive it. I also think that Harold versus Duncan's beef is also something to mention here, because during the whole thing, Duncan is stronger than Harold, torments him, and Harold gets eliminated. Nothing really changes between them, and that really sucks. I'm low battery on my phone. We could see their dynamic change several times over the season. We do get an episode where they do become allies, but it's non-elimination and it's pretty much not canon because the dynamic resets after this. Why couldn't the show take itself seriously? We needed it badly. They also do this with Heather and Lashana, where Lashana beats the crap out of Heather the next season. Why? I like this show because it has continual progress of the drama. And when we get a season that can pretty much be removed from the canon in its entirety, why am I still watching at that point? This season is consistently bad in its characterization. This season is consistently not interesting and drags on, or makes me want to turn it off. This season is consistently filler. There are some episodes that hit rock bottom. We are going to talk about the worst episode of Total Drama ever assembled together. Total Metal Drama. This episode is bad because some really stupid plot lines, a worthless elimination, and no significance on the plot whatsoever. The beginning of the episode is all about Owen trying to take a shit. This is because his jaw was broken by Chef and he had to eat blended food. What a boring plot line. It had no significance at all. They have to jump out of a plane for their first challenge, and it all solves itself pretty much, and everybody falls out. I don't understand why they even did this seriously. We have 3 challenges in this episode. Why would they waste time with something so useless? The next challenge is to use paint bombs to make a controlled and orderly explosion, but Izzy introduces the personality of Explosivo. Is it totally Izzy? Yes, it is. It's really Izzy in the way that she is. I felt like I need to explain that because that's some weird wording. But just like it fits with Izzy's character is what I mean there. But the joke runs as stale as the first time they tried to do the NPD stuff with her. I don't think her having NPD is nothing other than a joke to the writers. But then again, it seems as if she is pretending. The Grips obviously lose, and they go on to the challenge. They go on to the next challenge. Is just a come around way for the laxatives that Chef gave to Owen and Lashana took to be reintroduced. The rest of the episode is spent watching Lashana fart. It's so stupid and very gross. It's on the gross way of like the eating challenges and stuff. It just exists because the writers are really weird for this show because they have to insert themselves to sexual. They have to insert their own fetishes. And I think it's a major problem with kids' cartoons. If you look at like even live action shows like Drake and Josh or iCarly, or they have to always weirdly implement their own weird fetishes on children. I find it really disgusting, and this is one of those episodes. And I feel like it's not really discussed that much in the total drama community because people really do just completely suck off Action and the first 3 seasons in general. And I really don't think that's what we deserved. We didn't deserve a season like this. Izzy gets eliminated, and at the end, after coming back like 3 episodes earlier. This was a filler episode, and when someone that likes Action is told it has filler episodes, they say that it is worth it because we got good character moments out of it. But this is by far one of the worst episodes, and maybe one of the only total drama episodes I recommend you skipping on your next rewatch. Doesn't make sense to skip a total drama episode if you are viewing in order, but it also makes no sense for an episode to be this incredibly terrible in the first place. I do like Lindsay coming into her own. Heather's fall from grace and Harold becoming a comedic asset for the writing here. Lindsay has a constant struggle about how she previously was a complete lackey for Heather. But as she splits off, she figures out challenges, makes new friends, and is just great. She is so well done and is so unhated by the fan base because there's no reason to hate her. This is the best season by far for her. This is the best season by far, and she makes it to the final 6, so we have a lot of time, especially in this season, to get an all-around incredible performance by Lindsay. I also really enjoy Heather this season because her story was clearly thought out for season 3 entrance. She lied low this season. Maybe it was not as big as she was, but it's okay because she plays her part in her incredible arc. She has to have the best character arc as a character in the whole season. There's a lot of praise for her. Harold may not have overcame Duncan this season, but it is okay because he has the best characterization here. He also makes it far, and there's always just some dorky, stupid insert he has in every single episode that makes it that much better. Incredible writing here. The last thing I want to praise is the theme. They went out on a limb for the theme, and it was pretty good. It was a pretty good one. Because it made it a wider scope for the series as a whole and was capitalized in on the next season. Thank you for watching. I might review the newest season, but that depends on when it comes out in the United States. I have watched it, but I want everybody else to watch it legally in the United States purely so that they can have their own opinion, enjoy the season, and make it a fun experience. This was the Total Drama Action Antithesis.